So it's that time of the week again. I'm sitting down. I'm going to film a few boxing videos tonight. I've got a beer poured and a few topics that I want to talk about. The first one I want to touch on is a request I got sent through via email. My email address, boxinggossip@gmail.com. Feel free to drop me a line there, or the comment section works just as well, to be honest. But this was a request I had through via email, and it was: how would Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua fare against Vladimir Klitschko? Now, I'm going to do this on the basis of the guys in their current form. I'm not going to factor in improvement that may or may not occur, and it's going to be Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker based on their more recent performances. How would those guys fare against Vladimir Klitschko? Now, the first thing to mention is I believe both guys, certainly Anthony Joshua, but my understanding is both guys have actually sparred already with Vladimir Klitschko. So, in essence, there's a bit of familiarity there, but I know Klitschko's fought guys who's sparred with him before, and it hasn't, necessarily given them an advantage. So I don't necessarily think it will be a massive advantage for these guys on this occasion. Now, obviously, there's a lot of intangibles, specifically with regard to Anthony Joshua. How will he cope when someone hits him back? His chin's very untested. His stamina's also very untested. How will he cope when he gets dragged into the later rounds? And I think those are very, very important when assessing his chances against Vladimir Klitschko. Now, let's be honest, you get people mouthing off on Twitter, talking on YouTube. They've really bought into the Anthony Joshua dream. And fair play to you. It's good for boxing that there's this huge star who's knocking everyone out, who's got an Olympic gold medal, who the public loves. So I don't have any problem with that. But these people who, let's say, are casual fans and are on the Joshua bandwagon, going around saying that this guy just has too much power for Klitschko to live with, they really need a reality check. I mean, let's be honest, Vladimir Klitschko has shared a ring for 12 rounds with David Haye. He shared a ring for 12 rounds with Povetkin, with Wlad. He's fought Tony Thompson twice. He's fought Samuel Peter. The list goes on. At the top level, guys like David Haye, guys like Alexander Povetkin, these really are proven power punchers. I mean, we're talking about David Haye knocking out Derek Chisora to a point where, Chisora, I was at that fight. It was a bad knockout. Look at Povetkin, one punch knocking out Carlos Takam, who I rate as a top 10 heavyweight. One punch KOing Manuel Char. I mean, these are guys who really are very big punchers. Now, with Anthony Joshua, yes, he's knocked everyone out. Yes, nobody's able to go beyond a few rounds with him. But let's be honest. Firstly, he's not fought a top 50 heavyweight. Secondly, the stoppages he's been getting, Sprott stopped on his feet, Baktov stopped on his feet. This is not like when David Haye knocked out Derek Chisora. This is not like when, Povetkin knocked out Manuel Char or Povetkin knocked out Takam. These weren't hideous, brutal knockouts. They were a compassionate British referee jumping in and stopping a beatdown. So, what I'm getting at is, yes, Joshua can obviously punch a bit. He's obviously a big guy. But Klitschko's been in there with a lot bigger punches than Joshua. Klitschko's not going to be intimidated by Anthony Joshua whatsoever, and by fighting him. So, I don't necessarily view Klitschko as a guy who's easy to knock out. People seem to think he, can be caught. He's been chinny in the past. Let's be honest, this guy hasn't lost for like 10 years. He got knocked out when he was a completely different fighter, when he had half the experience and, his skill set hadn't truly been honed. Now, with Anthony Joshua, if we're going to talk about that, we can talk about Joshua, getting floored by Dillian White in the amateurs. It's like a different world away. So long ago. Klitschko now is a master defensive fighter. I honestly think the way he deals with guys like Povetkin, the way he was able to deal with guys like David Haye, he's able to take someone's game away from him. Now, I don't mean he's a master defensive fighter in the sense that he's got an electric head movement or electric footwork. what I mean is that this is a guy who can really take someone's assets away from him. People may say he's unsportsmanlike. People may say that, it's against the rules of boxing. But the way he shut down Alexander Povetkin, nobody has ever been able to do that to Povetkin before. For me, that comes under the banner of defensive fighting. For me, if he can stop Kubrat Pulev's game, if he can stop Povetkin's game, if he can stop David Haye's game, he barely... Those three guys are three of the top guys in the sport, and he barely lost a round over 36 to them. Maybe he lost one or two against David Haye, but pretty much a whitewash otherwise. If he can stop their game, what has people seen in Anthony Joshua? Surely his power isn't that sensational. He couldn't even drop Sprott and drop Baktov. These were guys who were stopped on their feet. The other thing about Joshua is, he seems to be... He's slightly more robotic than like a Tyson Fury or a David Haye. At the minute, it's very much sort of outside fighting, long 1-2s. He's got better recently, admittedly, but he's not shown to me that he's got that dynamic quality to his game to fight with a guy against Vladimir Klitschko. Essentially, I don't believe that Joshua's sort of power is the real deal, and I certainly don't believe it's enough to scare Vladimir Klitschko. So the question is he going to beat him on points? And I think with Vladimir Klitschko's tactics, with Klitschko's jab, with Klitschko's leaning and holding, it's going to be very hard for Joshua. I mean, we saw that against Kubrat Pulev. Kubrat Pulev, like Joshua, is a guy with an exceptional jab, but he's going up against the top jabber on the planet, Vladimir Klitschko, and suddenly his jab didn't look that good. I think Joshua would be in a fight with a taller guy who hits harder than him, who has got a better jab than him, and suddenly all of Joshua's advantages that he's enjoyed in his padded record career so far, being the bigger man, being the harder puncher, being the better jabber, suddenly those are all eroded. And what are we left with? We're left with a guy who hasn't, in his current state, been prepared. He's never fought a top 50 heavyweight. He's never had to go into the trenches. He's never had to go late into a fight. So, my thoughts are, at this point, it's way too big a step up for Anthony Joshua. Maybe in 10 fights' time, if he proves himself against drastically higher level opposition, if he proves he can go 10 rounds, if he proves he can go 12 rounds, if he proves that he can outpoint guys, if he shows he's got a chin, if he shows he's got defensive capability, then yeah, maybe he's got a chance. But right now, in his current form, it's too big a step up. I use this analogy a lot, and forgive me if it's getting boring, but in the UK, and I know I get viewers from outside the UK, but in the UK, soccer, football is the major sport that we deal in. Now, what I'd say is if a team absolutely dominates League 2, which is like the fourth tier of English football, if they win every game, 5 or 6-0, if they're absolutely clinical at that level, that's fantastic. Maybe you'd back them to be equally clinical, one level above. But would you back them to be performing at that level against a Premier League opposition? My point is that just because a team's performing destructively in League 2, it's going to be a world difference if they start playing against the Manchester Uniteds and the Arsenals of this world. And I think that analogy is comparable with what Anthony Joshua is doing at present. He's been fighting Baktov, Aries, Sprott. These guys are not top 50, they are top 100. He's about to move into League 1 level opposition, Kevin Johnson. There's a few fights out there for him against guys like Kevin Johnson, Sherman Williams, etc. Then we've got Championship level of opposition, the Derek Chisoras, the Christian Hamers, the Tony Thompsons of this world. But we're a long, long way off Vladimir Klitschko. And what I would say is Anthony Joshua has, all of his fights, he's been so much the bigger puncher, so much the taller man, so much the rangier man. He's more athletic, the bigger jab. Suddenly against Vladimir Klitschko, he's probably a worse athlete. His jab's worse. He's got less experience. He's probably shorter and smaller. He's got less power. All of this sort of advantages that he's enjoyed would be against him. So I think currently there's too much frailties, there's too much inexperience. I think at this point it's too big a step up and he gets knocked out. I have heard he's held his own in sparring. Maybe I'm being harsh. maybe he could improve, maybe he'll learn a lot from fighting better level of opposition, and I'm not saying that in 2 or 3 years' time, 10 fights later, he couldn't be competitive. What I am saying in answer to the request, if it happened today, he gets knocked out. Now, I've droned on for a long time here, so I'm going to pause it for 1 second. I'll put this up, and then I'm going to come back in a second and do a video for Joseph Parker. Please comment below, Anthony Joshua versus Klitschko, how do you see it? Thanks very much for watching.